I'm here with Helen Perry, one of the favorite people I've met in, I would say, the last couple of years, Helen. I'm always looking for kindred spirits, collaborators, and it's surprisingly rare for me to come across somebody who I just feel like is both aligned in the heart and also the strategy and and is really consistent in service to their audience. And I think you're one of those people. So I'm really glad that we met. And well, let me first just say hello to you, allow you to say hi to my audience, and then, yeah,
Hi,
yes,
George.
yeah, thank you.
Hi, George's audience.
Yes,
I'm,
exactly.
I'm sure you're my kind of people as well. That's a
Yeah,
really nice compliment, George. It's been really
yeah,
nice to connect with you as well.
yeah. It is. So, your background is quite interesting. You were a, BBC broadcaster, radio broadcaster, for a while, and it's not a surprise. I mean, your podcast, and as the first time I listened to them, like, she's a pro. It's like,
Yeah,
so.
I always feel the need sometimes to
Yeah,
explain that to people that I
yeah.
have a background that really helped me get to grips with content marketing. I worked for the BBC during my 20s and into my early 30s, and that taught me a great deal about talking to a specific audience,
Mm,
understanding the kind of language they needed to hear from you,
yes.
to simplify information, not use jargon, how to talk, how to broadcast. So,
Yes.
I cheated a little bit when I came onto, emails and Instagram. I already had quite a lot of those skills already, but it's
Yeah.
important context. Like, quite often we'll look at people online and go, wow, they can do this and they can do that.
Right.
And, I had that background and
Yes.
has
No.
helped me a lot.
It's a very good point. Very, very good point. Because I know some others go in, start the business and they already have a writing background, for example. So it's like their writing is so much faster maybe than others. But I feel like everybody brings their own assets into business, whatever aspect of their personality or history or career history can be beneficial, and sometimes we forget to emphasize those parts of ourselves. But also, you after the BBC career, you spent almost a decade being a mother,
Yeah.
full time, and that is superhero. I really think like mothers are superheroes because yeah, it's like every child is like two full-time jobs. It's like, but and after doing that, you came back and built a business, so that's really impressive. I know a lot of people who are watching or listening to this, either are or know, kind of mothers, or who want to like get back into their career and build a business. So I'm sure you have some tips to share there. Now you have been growing your Instagram audience. I mean, it's awesome. You are so generous. I mean, I'm looking at your Instagram profile here. You're so generous on your Instagram posts. I want to encourage everyone. Of course, I will put the link below to check it out. Search Helen Perry, your name on Instagram. You should pop up. Your podcast is awesome. It's really well done, and it's enjoyable to listen to. So I hope folks will listen and learn some inspiration, get some inspiration, and learn some marketing from there as well. So I wanted I wanted to ask, anything else you want to say about your background before we continue?
No, I think you have more than covered it. It's always it's I know I do this to people on my podcast, but when you hear it all read back to you, you think, well,
Yeah.
that sounds great. So that will do nicely.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, you share so much, like I said, on your Instagram. I want people to go and check it out and follow you there. But a couple of things, you're known for the hashtag, well, your podcast also, just bloody post it, you know, and and you recently wrote about the reasons to do that. This is important, especially for, well, I would say my audience, but I think for anybody who um, maybe grew up with some perfectionistic tendencies or performance tendencies, like we go through school, we try to get all the good grades, we try to be a good girl, good boy, and now on the internet, the internet never forgets, right? And so we might be afraid to put stuff out there, either for, the internet archives forever, but also just our friends, our family, our colleagues who see us. And so this idea of just barely posted, yeah, it's scary, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So maybe you can, I mean, this is sort of one of the core messages that you have, and I want you to kind of share with us why and how.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it is a cornerstone message that I share with the small businesses that I work with.
Yes.
It just occurred to me somewhere along the line that something that a lot of the people I connected with were having trouble understanding is that in order to learn how to do this kind of job of communicating well, or how to do marketing well, you are going to have to share some things that aren't perfect, and you are going to have to get things wrong, and you are going to have posts that fall flat on their face, and it's really hard, and it makes you feel vulnerable. It can make you feel a kind of sense of shame and embarrassment when you put something out on the internet and it doesn't quite get the reaction that you hope for. I really understand that. I get that. I think anybody who is running a profile has felt that way. But if you don't do it, you will never discover the truly effective messaging that you need to in order to connect with the right people. It's just at the core of kind of everything you're trying to achieve, is just take a bit of a risk, get it out there. But it's also around, we've got other things to do. We've got, we're busy people. Make the thing, put it on Instagram, put it on your email. Doesn't matter if it's a bit scrappy or a bit messy or imperfect, it's done. You can go and do something else, So in many ways, it ties together a lot of my work. Just get it out there, learn from it, move on, do something else.
Yeah, it's so good to hear you say that. A couple of the concerns people might have in doing this, that I hear about is like, one, what about negative feedback? And I mean, I'm sure you can, I get, most of us pay more attention to the criticisms that we receive than the praise. I don't know what the studies say, but it's something like 10 times more or 7 times
At
more,
least,
something
I
like
reckon,
that.
at least
Yeah.
10.
I mean,
Most of us could read 1,000 positives
yes,
and kind of choose to not believe them or discount them or undervalue them. And you'd get one negative and you would remember it for the rest of your life often,
yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean,
Yeah.
it can take our energy down at least for a day, if not the week. And like you said, it always will, somewhere in there in our minds for the rest of our life. So, okay, we're taking a risk with just bloody posted with the negative. Let's speak to that first. Like, how do you, I mean, you have 3 times the Instagram audience I have. I'm sure you've gotten some negative feedback on it, or maybe you don't. I don't know.
Well, do you know
Yeah.
what I really would say is the fear of negativity far outweighs the
Yes.
amount of time that happens. I mean, I have been incredibly fortunate with my online audience in that it is so generous, very supportive, very kind. I could count on one hand the number of negative or slightly critical messages I've had. So first of all, I'd say that your fear of negative feedback is probably far too big. I think probably that comes down to the fact that I have always had a good relationship with my followers. I try to treat them as I would like to be treated myself. We are in conversation with one another all the time. I try and explain my moves, my motives, my business, what's going on. So it's very transparent. And I do think there's a lot to be said for, this piece about if you are yourself, or can be as close to yourself in online, in public, on the internet, then you will attract the right kind of people who won't be unkind to you. And, I don't think we have too much to fear, actually. Occasionally I get a bit of criticism. Mostly I don't respond to it because it probably just means somebody's having a bad day. They might find me triggering in some way. You have to separate yourself. When we're nasty to a salesperson in a shop, or we're a bit grumpy in a restaurant, or we see something online and we think it's got really probably nothing to do with them and a lot to do with what kind of day we're having.
Yeah, really. Really good reminders. The other concern is people, we all have this experience. We post stuff out there, like you said, and it doesn't generate the kind of momentum, it wasn't as amazing to everyone else as it was when we envisioned it. It was such a big deal for us.
Yeah, such a big deal.
And we thought, no, maybe we thought, oh, this is so smart. Like I think this is, it took me 10 years to come to
My
this
best
point.
work. Yeah.
So how do you, I mean, given that you have so much experience with online content, like how do you deal with, I mean, by the way, of course, now that you have a big audience, like it's all relative. It's like, oh, this one only got 100 likes compared to the
Yeah,
others
I
that
mean,
got 800. It's like how do you deal with the lows of responses?
I think I have built a thick skin to pieces of content that don't go as well as I hope they might. And I can even I can almost take a bit of pleasure in it now. It's like, oh, well, that sucked. It doesn't matter too much. I try not to take it too personally. Also, with all of these things, George, you've been doing this for a while. The more practice you get, actually, my content engagement isn't a roller coaster. It's pretty steady with a few peaks, because I kind of know what I'm putting out there now. I can predict probably 8 out of 10 times what's going to do well, what might not be as popular, but some posts that do not get as well engaged with as others are still really important. They might have a sales message, they might lead to people clicking into my website. So success can be measured in a lot of ways. I will share a post about a podcast episode, and I know that won't get engaged with a huge amount, but some people will listen to my podcast because they've seen that message. So it's important. So there are lots of ways to understand your metrics, aren't there?
Yeah, it's really good. I appreciate you mentioning that different types of posts it's supposed to get different levels of engagement. Like, for example, some people say, well, hey, George, every time I post about my business, like an offer, like, hey, here's my package or whatever. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's not necessarily it's not necessarily like salesy in terms of a negative way. It's just an offer like, hey, this is my package that I'm offering right now. People say, oh, every time I post my business, it gets very little engagement or likes. And so maybe I should stop doing it. And every time I post a selfie, get tons of likes. So should I just be posting selfies all day?
And but also, engagement can happen in such a passive way. There can be very many people following us that wouldn't leave a comment on a YouTube video. They wouldn't leave a comment on an Instagram post. It wouldn't occur to them to do that. Doesn't mean they're not taking it in. Doesn't mean they're not a future customer. They could be a really loyal, engaged follower that's just very passive in the way that they engage with your content. And, that sales post that, your client is talking about could just lead to one great sale. And then does it matter that it got 10% of the engagement of your selfie that was liked by all your friends? And, we all like faces. We could all post pictures of our cats all day. It would get fantastic engagement, but it's not going to get you anywhere,
Yeah. It's a really good point. So one of the other things you recently posted I thought was great was about like attention spans. And this is especially true while on social media, but like Instagram is Reels is so popular these days, these short, tiny videos that are trying to compete with TikTok. And so there's long been I think it's a myth. I think you understand that too, that, oh, people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You only have, whatever the studies are, you have 1.5 seconds with somebody on your website before they click away, So how do you feel about that? What's your experience with attention spans? And
I suppose it is a thought that's born out of Reels, because I can't find it in myself to get my message down to 7 seconds, like about anything. And that's the optimal length apparently for a Reel or a TikTok video. So I just can't do it. So I have been sharing slightly longer videos, a whole minute long, for example. Wow.
A whole minute
That's
long. 10 times.
And if what you're saying is interesting enough, people will absolutely sit and watch it. I have found, and I think that's true of long blog posts. I think that's true of longer videos.
Right.
I did a great interview with a guy that you would really like, actually, George, who you may not have come across. He's called David Hyatt, and he runs a company called Hyatt Denim, and he's big. He also talks about email marketing a lot. You should look him up, because I think you would enjoy his content.
Yes.
And I interviewed him for the podcast, and he said that there's a mistake, that there's a scarcity of attention. Actually, there's a scarcity of great content and a scarcity of great ideas. And if you can come up with that stuff, people are here for it. They will absolutely sit and watch and read and listen for longer.
Yeah, I 100% am in agreement. I mean, we could say more than any time in history, it's easier to get attention now. When I was growing up, what did you have to do? Place a newspaper advertisement, do a billboard, go knocking on doors, call people up. Back when there was no caller ID, telemarketing was more effective because they didn't know who they were. But now it's like everybody's glued to their screen. And so it's like, if you show up there with content that is speaking to where they're at and what they need and what they are yearning for, of course they're going to pay attention. And okay, so Helen, what about this idea of I'm not entertaining enough? I'm not. By the way, some people who are watching.
Do you mean sort of TikTok entertaining?
Could be, exactly. Like I'm not as good of a dancer, or I'm not as, I always say to my audience, listen, I'm not George Clooney, I'm no model, and yet I still show up on video. It's like I know I'm not going to win in the Instagram influencer body awards, but I still show up even on video. And so it's I'm not good enough, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot going on in people's minds around imposter syndrome, or whether they have anything or any value to offer. That this huge thing of, who am I to say this, or I am not qualified, or I will have to wait until I have done X, Y, and Z before I can start talking about this issue. We all underestimate how much we know about our specialist topic in terms of what it might mean to someone else to learn the kind of tools of our trade, or the things that we've learned along the way. And I think we have to stop separating our online presence from our real life one, because the whole thing is getting increasingly muddled up anyway. And the reason that you and I can be out there on video, and there are people who are, surprise, quite happy to look at us, quite happy to read our content, is because we're just normal people. And in the past, we might have been sitting across the office from them, or we might have been somebody they'd come across in night school or something like that. But now this all happens online. And do you know what? Why not you? That's what I always think. Why should it not be you that shares what you know? You will find other people that it resonates with. They're out there. We're not all so different. If you're thinking something or feeling something or needing to understand something, or if you have some information to share, there are people who want and need to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an encouraging message, and it's true. And so your main platforms are Instagram and the podcast. And what would you recommend for the fellow creators out there? Obviously, I'm also a big fan of the Instagram thing. But what are you chose those for a reason. So tell us about those choices. Now you might be investing your time on other platforms too, but tell us about the platforms you've selected.
Yeah, there's a big piece of that puzzle that you wouldn't necessarily be aware of in my work. That's the most unsexy, unglamorous bit, and that's email marketing. And I do rely on my email list really heavily in my business. I came onto Instagram first. That was my way back into the world of work after I'd been at home with my kids, and I educated myself in how social media worked on Instagram. And then I got a really, really, really great piece of advice, and that was to start collecting email addresses. And when I started to do that, and I coupled up this Instagram thing where people can just find you and discover you and maybe listen to you for a minute or two, if you can team that up with then speaking to them on email, then you can build a relationship that's strong enough that they will want to work with you. And I think it takes that extra layer.
I'm going to make sure, well, your website's obviously going to be below this video, and I encourage people to check out your email newsletter. But do you write different things for your email newsletter than your Instagram? Tell us about your strategy with that.
I have quite a clear strategy in that I go email first. So I share a newsletter, and if something is in my newsletter, it will not have been on my Instagram first. So if I have ideas and thoughts and recommendations, I send it out to my email newsletter subscribers list first, and then I repurpose that content often, and it will show up on Instagram. But my subscribers are probably my most, is important the wrong word, my most loyal or engaged with community members. So that's the order I do it in. And then the podcast, that's been running for less than a year, so I'm still learning about podcasting and how that fits into the picture, but I enjoy it so much.
Yes, well, it utilizes the strengths you had from that previous career, and it's done brilliantly well. So this is really interesting, because with we have actually opposite strategies in terms of email marketing.
Okay, what's yours?
I mean, mine is actually, when I say opposite, I mean I put everything on social media first, and then my email newsletter is essentially like, here are the posts you may have missed from the past week. Click through. And I also, I'm sure you as well, I also get quite a high click rate, and a lot of people miss the things.
I was going to say that's because people don't see it.
Of course, there's so much to see on social, but email, it's like, it's one of the email messages that they have to at least scroll past, in there. So no, I totally agree that our true fans are more likely to be on the email newsletter than everywhere else. At the same time, I feel that, I always encourage people to think more broadly about, because sometimes when it comes to email marketing, there can be a myopia, perhaps, like, I just got to get people's email addresses. And so people use all kinds of shenanigans to get people's email addresses.
We don't like shenanigans, do we? I know shenanigans get you nowhere, because they have to be really, truly I suppose the sales term is warm leads, don't they? Yes. People have to really, there's no point in having somebody on your email list if they do not want to be there and they do not want to hear from you. And it might make you feel good to have another 1,000 subscribers or whatever, but those people, they're not buying, they're probably unsubscribing, and they even might be like a bit grumpy with you for the things that you've done in order to get hold of their contact details. So it's pointless.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the examples is over the years, I've seen so many people create telesummits or virtual conferences, and they just assume, hey, everyone who signs to the virtual conference is on my email list forever, kind of thing. And I've seen, again, colleague after colleague, client after client, follow that strategy, and it's like their email list maybe 10,000 people or whatever, but it's like their open rate is like 10%, and their click rate is like 0.2%, or like something like, they're like, wow, I essentially didn't build a 10,000. I essentially built a 500, 1,000 person email list or something like that. It's like anyway. So I really appreciate how you treat your audience with care. I think that's what shows up to me very, very clearly through all the ways that you engage with them. So anyway, I hope people will check out how you do it. Your Instagram, your email newsletter, your podcasts, the links will be below. Any, I guess, parting words of wisdom? I'm sure we're going to continue the conversation in many other ways, but for this particular segment anyway.
Okay, I think that there are very many ways that you can do effective marketing, and try and have the courage to get in touch with what is going to work for you best. Because if it's going to work for you best to focus on emails or YouTube or Instagram, that is probably going to be the best thing for your people. And it's probably going to be the thing that you can consistently keep doing. So try to, I mean, we both give people marketing advice, but when it comes to the crunch, try and block out the noise and do one or two things well.
Yeah.
And there's no right answer. Emails and Instagram and podcasts works for me. YouTube works for you, George, and Instagram. There is no one size.
Totally.
Fits.
Appreciate that. And
you know,
when people look at us, they see us doing maybe what hopefully they think they see us doing many things well. I don't know, but they see us doing many things. But we are marketers. We're supposed to,
yes.
This is our full-time job. We're supposed
that's
to
my job.
know all these different things. But if you're not a marketing person, marketing coach, expert, consultant, thought leader, you don't have to. Just if you focus, your energies will be, you'll be happier and you'll learn that thing faster. So I appreciate you giving your audience and mine that reminder and that permission. So thank you, Helen, for all that you do. And I hope folks will follow you on these different places and learn from you. So thanks for all you do.
Thank you so much for having me.